Joining us now to give us a picture of how the local election results are panning out is Patrick English, Associate Director at YouGov. Good morning to you, Patrick.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Very happy to have you with us. So give us an overview of the results as you see them this morning.
Well, the truth is we are still kind of not in the early stages, but we're kind of perhaps midway through the counts at the moment and midway through kind of getting our heads around what is going on and what might go on and what might be to come across the rest of the day. So probably the first thing to say is that these set of results, they don't, of course, look as bad for the Conservatives as some of the earlier projections might have been looking, but they do represent losses and significant ones for the Conservative Party. They have gone backwards, and most notably, they've gone backwards in London, where they've lost some key councils, including Wandsworth, and also in the rest of the south as well. We've seen Southampton fall out of their control. West Oxfordshire has fallen out of their control as well. As far as Labour are concerned, well, the Conservatives' losses have not necessarily translated into Labour gains. In fact, the Liberal Democrats are the party at the moment that are leading the count in terms of gaining extra councillors. The Green Party have had a really good night as well. So Labour have made progress. Yes, they've made some really good progress in terms of taking seats and councils in London in particular and elsewhere in the south, but particularly if we start looking up in the north and the Midlands, we're not really seeing much signs compared to that 2018 baseline, at least, that Labour have advanced all that much. So we'll wait and see. There are a lot more counts to kind of finish yet, but that's kind of where we are at the moment.
And how does this compare with what the polls were predicting?
Yeah, so I think if we kind of look at what the polls might have been suggesting in terms of seat losses and where the two parties might stand, I think by the time we've sort of wound up all the counts, Labour will have probably undershot where we thought they might be in terms of sort of equivalent national vote shares and seat gains, and the Conservatives might just have kind of crept up back up toward the kind of the lower bound of their expectations, we might say. So, but broadly speaking, the polls would have told you that Labour would be making advances, the Conservatives would have losses, they would be in the hundreds, and that's kind of what we're going to see. So perhaps a little bit less change than the polling might have predicted, but by and large, this is kind of in line with what we might have expected to see.
And what about turnout, Patrick? Have people actually been coming out to vote?
Turnout's been very interesting. So on average at the moment, although of course we've still got quite a lot to go, we think the turnout is down a little bit, a couple of points perhaps on 2018. Now this varies quite a lot across the country. We have some councils reporting just 1 in 5 people turning out to vote, whereas other councils is pushing up more toward 40%. So the pattern of turnout across the country is very interesting and depends where you are. And I think overall there's probably a little bit more apathy this time around than there was in 2018, but we'll have to wait and see.
Do we know yet which issues have been guiding the vote, whether or not it's been local or national issues?
Well, local politics is always fascinating because it's simultaneously everything about national politics and it's simultaneously nothing to do with national politics. And I think probably both of these things are true. Things such as leadership, who are the leaders, what are they doing, what are they saying, that always feeds into vote intention at every levels. Kind of general attitudes towards the parties. And we know that governments as well in particular, particularly if they're doing a bad job, tend to get a kicking in these so-called midterm elections. So I think probably we haven't been back out into the field yet with any polls. But what we will find is I think people have voted on a kind of mixture of what they think is happening in the national politics, but also potholes are important, particularly in these local council votes. And that would have definitely guided some votes too. And we can see that with some independents doing very well. And as we've said, the Liberal Democrats and the Greens in areas that they've been targeting, the voters responded directly to those parties. So there are lots of local issues and lots of sort of local dynamics going into these votes, but the national picture is always important.
And finally, Patrick, which ones are there that you've got your eye on that results are yet to be called over the coming hours?
Yeah, so I've definitely got my eye on places like Bury, where Labour are defending a kind of really, really narrow majority. Elsewhere, we've got Worthing and Crawley. Now, if Southampton is anything to go by, the result there with Labour taking the council, well, Crawley and Worthing, that could spell danger for the Conservatives too. Of course, we've also got Scotland to look forward to, and there's going to be a big battle on there between Labour and the Conservatives for second place in the vote. And then we have the Northern Irish election as well. So there's lots to come, lots of really interesting races, and lots to keep an eye on.
Patrick English, Associate Director at YouGov. Thank you so much for that.
Plenty to come here on Times Radio Breakfast with Jenny Kleeman and Kate Borsay. We're going to keep you across all the results as they come in on the local elections. We know Labour are making gains, but when we start to get a clearer picture, when we emerge from the slightly foggy status we're in at the moment, will it be a clear and resounding victory for Labour, or perhaps a little bit more nuanced than that? We'll let you know throughout the show and, of course, throughout the day here on Times Radio. It's 6:42.